The one thing that I wanted to kind of touch on very briefly was we did the whistleblower story a couple weeks ago, and it took a couple weeks to finally get that through um, copyright. So if you were to go over that, actually did very well for us yesterday. More news comes out about Facebook. Um, so if you heard our take on the Facebook whistleblower, a whole lot of nothing happening. Now they're referring to the Facebook papers, which is again a whole lot of nothing. It's like they're allowing misinformation. They didn't take election and the Capitol riot stuff seriously. Blah blah blah. Let's control and censor Facebook. That's the gist of what they're going for. And this quote whistleblower is nothing more than a crazy progressive Bernie bro type person who believes that she said this in front of Congress, right? She should be in charge. A job for someone like me. That they feel that they should be able to censor Facebook, control what you and I see. Uh, this just continues to be a story that has legs. It's not a big one that we're going to cover again tonight and beat on that more, but uh, don't expect this to go away, folks. You have this incredible movement for them to get control of other outlets that have information that they don't want you to have, right? So if you're on Facebook, you can, well, it was easier to share links and share stories, but now you can't. Things are flagged all the time, things are censored all the time. It's already that difficult. Imagine how much more difficult they want it to be, right? So when you have these stories that have come out that say, well, uh, employees of Facebook were flagging Breitbart, saying, oh, well, Breitbart shouldn't be in news. But then when they go through their fact checking process, their evaluative process, they go, well, there's nothing dishonest about the story itself. It's like, just because you don't like Breitbart doesn't mean that they can't report on this happening. It was because they were reporting on the protests that had turned into riots. There was violence. There were fires being set. Breitbart was covering all of that last year, and the employees at Facebook, these internal battles were going on, and Facebook, to their credit, didn't do anything. And if anything, these Facebook papers are showing that Facebook has at least had this back and forth over some of these outlets and sources. But, and again, Daily Wire talked about it this week. I'm sure the people there at Breitbart could talk about it. I know we've experienced it over the years. Facebook has definitely throttled you back. And what that means is, let's say 5 years ago, you'd post a story and it would be seen by, let's say, 1,000 people on your Facebook page or wall or whatever. By today, that's already probably cut in half. Maybe not half for other people. You have to pay, try to promote it, but the return on your investment is decreased by a minimum of 20-25%. It's just, there's already sort of a filtering. I know people have talked about terms like shadow banning and things like that, which is easier to kind of trace and see in other ways. You see that on Twitter, for instance, where certain people just won't see it. It just is suppressed. It's just there. So uh, the frustrating part with all of this is how many times have they censored a story or pulled a story and then it turns out to be true, right? And then in this last year and a half or so, this has been the case over and over and over again. We saw it right before the election. The Hunter Biden laptop, it was all phony. No one should see it. It was a major outlet that was censored, and come to find out, it was valid, it was true. There was no hacking, there was none, all this other nonsense. We've seen this time and time again with the pandemic and the data, and it was where the origins of the virus started. It was like mocking the president at the time, ridiculous statements that he was saying. I'm not trying to defend it. What I'm trying to say is we weren't allowed to evaluate information for ourselves. They were censoring things, and now it's come out that it could be true. We know that the origins are there. Motivations and reasons is a completely different argument, something that should be up for debate and discussion. But when they preemptively censor and remove it, we were never allowed to have those conversations. So, a couple of examples. The Facebook papers, in my opinion, don't really give us a lot of insight into things that should be censored, which is what they're going for. And I think that when you think about the left, if you have an individual that's evaluating all that and they want to censor Facebook and they want to shut all that down, my big thing is, where do you want people that don't agree with you go? It's kind of what I was saying about Parler. When they removed Parler and this whole big conspiracy where, the Apple and the Amazon kind of conspired and just eliminate Parler and just basically shut it down. Kind of how President Trump was removed. My question is this: when you have half the country, just ballpark the number at half, where do you want them to go? Like, what is the appropriate outlet for them to get information if they don't want to go to your site? Like, what site can they go to? And reality is this: we're back to the fundamental problem. The Texas versus California is the battle of the culture war because California can't let Texas be, right? The right and the left. The right doesn't really care. We feel on the right, and I would say I'm libertarian right. You got your outlets and you got your news, right? Where can I go to create news or run a website or do whatever, or get my news and I'll be left alone? Like, you're not going to try to keep attacking it. And I don't think you can. I think that they look at every opportunity to say, oh no, this is misinformation. This is not valid. Cancel this person, remove this content, those kinds of things. That is pretty much how all of that goes. And I'd be shocked if the Facebook story kind of goes away. We'll see more of it.
Hey, we're News Talk with Brandon and Bob. We're here to tell you about some of the facts so you don't have to waste your time watching CNN.
We don't want you wasting any time with CNN.
Or Fox or MSNBC or some of these other guys that are making a whole lot of money.
Et cetera, et cetera.
It's not paying.